I've never played Ninja Gaiden, but I wanted to understand its story. Surprisingly, I couldn't find a video that explained it in the style I was looking for, so I figured, why not do it myself? With Ninja Gaiden 4 set to release in fall of 2025, now seems like the perfect time for me to go ahead and do this. So with that being said, welcome to the story of
Ninja Gaiden 2.
Black. If you enjoy the content, hit like. If not, dislike it. Engagement is engagement after all. Spoilers ahead, and this story is, well, it's a story. Before talking about the events of Ninja Gaiden 2, I want to take a step back and talk about the things that happened the main things that happened in Ninja Gaiden 1. So, in Ninja Gaiden 1, there was something called the Dark Dragon Blade. It's this evil sword with immense power. And to keep it from falling into the wrong hands, the Hayabusa clan guards it in their village. Enter Ryu Hayabusa, a ninja obviously, the main protagonist, but more importantly, he is a descendant of the dragon lineage, an ancient bloodline of warriors sworn to protect the world from supernatural threats, especially fiends. Yes, demons exist in this universe. Now, the Hayabusa clan is one of the last remnants of this lineage. Ryu and his father Joe are the last descendants of the dragon lineage. Ryu's evil uncle would end up betraying the clan, invading the village, nearly slaughtering everybody, and then stealing the Dark Dragon Blade. Fueled by vengeance, Ryu hunts him down, defeats him, and ultimately destroys the Dark Dragon Blade, ensuring that its power can never be used again. Fast forward to Ninja Gaiden 2, a supposed CIA agent named Sonya comes to a not secretly OP old guy named Muramasa, asking for Ryu concerning something called the Archfiend. But that's when an evil ninja comes bursting through the door. Now, Special Agent Sonya does kill 2 of these ninjas before running away, however, she would get caught. CIA. But luckily for Sonya, one ninja gets a backshot, one gets a facial, and another one gets his guts rearranged. Ryu is here to save the day. Night. However, before Ryu can untie Sonya, a fiend comes and takes her away. So after eviscerating enemies, fighting the camera, platforms, and gravity, I find a new weapon, immediately fall in love with it, upgrade it, and then arrive at a giant tower. At the top, Ryu stands with that Piccolo energy. He somehow found exactly where she was in the entire city of Tokyo. Sonya gets slapped by some woman, Ryu glides across to the building because of course he can fall with style, and that's when we find the fiend who kidnaps Sonya, who, stealing Gandalf's line, tells us that we shall not pass, before transforming into Spider-Man. And with that, our first boss fight begins. After getting poked with our stick one too many times, the fiend bites the dust, but before we can celebrate, CIA operative Sonya finds herself in the clutches of Elizebet, a vampire-looking Dami-Mami who is very clearly bad news. What I don't get is how come Sonya doesn't fight back? If she's CIA, shouldn't she have training, years of experience, combat? She's just getting dragged onto the airship, but then suddenly, Dami-Mami decides that she doesn't need Sonya anymore and just kicks her off. What was the point of kidnapping her at all then? No idea. But before flying off, Elizebet cryptically says that Sonya bought them enough time. But for what? After Ryu catches and saves Sonya, she finally spills the beans. The fiends are trying to resurrect the Archfiend, a being of unimaginable evil. Even worse, they're headed for the Hayabusa village to steal the demon statue, the key to unleashing said evil. But surely, after the events of the first game, the village has better defenses this time around, right? Wrong, because by the time Ryu arrives, the village is already on fire. Oh, you know what? That's actually probably what Elizebet meant. Ryu chasing after Sonya meant that he was preoccupied while the village was under siege. Meanwhile, Joe, Ryu's dad, is already locked in battle with Genshin, a major antagonist whose katana gives off serious Jetstream Sam vibes from Metal Gear Rising. Proceeding with the carnage, we grab some Wolverine claws and slice our way through the endless supply of enemy meat sacks. Meanwhile, Joe and Genshin are still chopping it up, until Genshin impacts Joe so hard, leaving him hanging. This leaves the demon statue wide open for Genshin to grab. They hid the statue inside of another statue. I don't know how I feel about that. Suddenly, Elizebet appears because I guess she was just there, and in the distance, Mount Fuji erupts as they declare that the fiends have now been unleashed. But were the gates of hell opened up because Elizebet had the power to, or did moving the demon statue from its other statue do that? Either way, Ryu shows up, squares off with Genshin, but before things can get settled, Joe interrupts and orders Ryu to retrieve the statue. Ambivalently, Ryu bounces. Now, with the Underworld unleashed, the world has 4 great fiends running loose, and one of them, Alexei, has decided to make himself right at home with the Statue of Liberty in New York City. This lightning-controlling narcissist is out here giving off major Zarbon aura. Yes, another Dragon Ball Z reference. He casually flirts with Lady Liberty, showing her some of his electric love, but somehow Ryu tracks Elizebet all the way from Tokyo to Manhattan. Don't ask how. And this time, instead of gracefully gliding down, he hitches a ride off a demon because why not? Making our way through the streets of New York, then down into the subway tunnels, once again we find ourselves fighting gravity and platforming mechanics, but eventually we fight with what is basically the floating centipede demon from Devil May Cry 3, followed by a giant eyeless beast on top of a bridge. Sonya shows up with the Hilo. Actually, maybe that's how we got from Japan to the USA so quickly, but still, that would be like a 13-hour flight. But anyway, dropping us off at the Statue of Liberty, we would hop up to the top and make our first Great Fiend drop. And I don't know why Sonya didn't just bring us to the very top where he was, instead of making us have to climb up to the top to get there. Shifting gears for a moment, we cut to a boy from the Hayabusa village, facing off against a big red demon who clearly has no shame. He's going to use the kid as bait for Ryu. But oh no, he's not getting Ryu, he's about to get a shrine maiden named Momiji. I love my wife. After putting the beat down on Big Red and Blue, she hugs the boy, vowing protection. Unfortunately, she can't protect him from the ninja lurking in the shadows, lining up a cheap shot. But right as he's about to pull the trigger, a mysterious old man appears out of nowhere and slices him up like discount sushi, saving the both of them. In a Gothic castle within a Venetian-style city, the next great fiend, a towering lycanthrope, is bored, eager for a worthy challenger. To speed things up, he sends his werewolves into the city to hunt for a fighter, unaware that a certain demon slayer is already on his way. Navigating through canals and waterways, Ryu quickly closes in on the castle, but instead of a grand entrance, he's forced to go in from below, straight into a fight with a water dragon. After sending that to its watery grave, we have another fight with the actual bosses of the game, the camera and the platforms. Moving ahead, after getting boned by this bonerific boss, we change to a cutscene where Volf gets really excited to see me. Unable to keep it in his pants, he immediately summons a sandstorm to set the mood. But when I do arrive at his house, he doesn't want to get straight to business. No, he's got a ritual, one that involves being outside in public with a bunch of others watching. He asks me to come with him. Pause. To the Colosseum so we can do it like real men. Double pause. Real warriors, gladiators. After hitting him with hollow purple like Gojo Satoru and giving him the business, I put him to bed. He's exhausted. But the other werewolves want to get in on the party, so I pick up his scythe and I get to entertaining. Eventually, Sonya would fire missiles into the crowd, picking me up, and then we would fly off like cowboys. Now, back in NYC, a giant goat, the third greater fiend, would have a monologue about the Dragon Warrior, except he's not getting Ryu. Tonight, he's getting Rachel, who he notices has fiend blood coursing through her veins, so he's not immediately hostile, until she brandishes her giant hammer at him, telling him to go back to hell. A fight breaks out, she shatters his other horn, and the sun shines through as the greater fiend falls away. Back with Ryu and Sonya, somehow, in the great wide airspace of Earth, they've tracked down Elizebet and Genshin, this time aboard a massive airship soaring through the sky. You would think that Sonya's first move would be to fire artillery at the giant flying death machine, or at least them in the cockpit. They looked right at them. Instead, she just drops me off on the back because why make things easy? Now once inside, it's classic Ryu. We Hadouken through enemies, blow up the reactor, and as we make our way through the ship, Genshin would try to stop us, but the back half of the airship would break off, causing Ryu and Sonya to skyfall to their deaths. But luckily for us, that's not going to happen because there is a conveniently placed motorbike, and Sonya, who has zero regard for my eardrums, fires a rocket next to my head, blasting open an escape route. We safely land in the snow, but before we can even recompose, a fire armadillo rolls on in, demanding a fight. After dealing with him, we meet the next greater fiend, a giant bat demon who, for some reason, feels the need to deliver a history lecture. He rambles about the time before humans had technology, when they still depended on the fiends for survival. Later, he's going to talk about how he gave humans fire. The military below decides to skip the monologue opening fire, but as expected, it does absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, I'm making my way downtown, walking fast, faces pass, and I'm dodging landmines. Soon we would find ourselves in the clock tower, and we would also find ourselves getting crushed by giant cogs. I think it's funny that Ryu can slay demons and jump from tall buildings and fall out of the sky just fine, but struggles against platforms and the camera. Eventually I reach the top, and I put the flying history professor down. Side note, why do all of these monsters feel the need to announce their names and their job descriptions before dying? Like, every big boss that we've fought so far all say what their name and title is. I think it's funny. But after the fiery showdown, we cut to a surprising reveal. It turns out, Dad isn't dead. He's just been hanging out somewhere. We see him speaking to a hooded figure, instructing them to find Ryu and retrieve some artifact called the Eye. Back in Venice, we finally see who Joe was talking to. It's a kunoichi named Ayane. She's tracked down the Eye, but it's in the possession of some demonic witch. So of course there is a boss fight. After ripping the Eye out of her, artifact in hand, Ayane immediately takes off to deliver it to Ryu. But before we move on, we get a random shot of a mysterious woman standing on a rooftop. Who is she? No clue. I don't think she ever shows up in the game again. If anybody knows, drop a comment, let me know, because I got nothing. Now in the mangroves, Ryu cuts through the enemies like a lawnmower, making his way to a grand waterfall. But just as he arrives, Elizebet swoops in riding a dragon. Naturally, we kill that dragon, but before Ryu can deal with Elizebet, she raises the dragon statue, triggering some sort of ominous event. The sky turns blood red, and the waterfall stops. But it's to our benefit, because the waterfall actually opens up a hidden path, leading us into an ancient temple. Inside, we find Elizebet, Genshin, and evil Dr. Strange, all gathered for some kind of ritual. Quick question, does Elizebet need to be half naked for this? Because evil Dr. Strange isn't. I just think that's interesting. Anyway, he gives her one job, to kill Ryu. Too bad for him, that's not going to be easy. Not while I'm playing on lore-accurate Ryu mode, aka story mode. When Ryu finds her in the temple, she's bathing in glowing red water. Or it could be blood, I'm not sure. Actually, it's probably blood. She talks about her evil plans before floating up and transforming, then stating her name and job title. After an intense fight, she falls into her swirling blood vortex, and I'm not gonna lie, she looks kind of funny getting sucked down. Just as things are settling down, Genshin appears and tells us exactly where to go next. Appreciate the assist, I guess. With that, Ryu turns to Sonya, tells her not to follow, and then he heads out to continue the mission. With Mount Fuji looming in the distance, Ayane tracks us down to deliver the Eye of the Dragon. We combine it with our sword, boosting Ryu's power even further before moving along. Now, you see, this is what I don't understand. This old dude, Murasama, is already super strong. Just look at how OP he is. He's cutting down all of these ninjas with one slice. Why are old dudes in Japanese media always so strong? It begs the question, why am I even here? Just send Murasama to stop the Archfiend. Call it a day. He's talking about not being able to climb the mountain, but it looks like he's been getting around everywhere just fine. Before heading out, Murasama decides that now is a perfect time for a history lesson, explaining how Ryu's ancestors sealed the Archfiend inside Mount Fuji long ago. Cool story, but maybe this could have been mentioned earlier and not while the climactic event itself is happening. Anyway, After lore dumping on us, he hands Ryu some takeout like a concerned grandpa. Descending into the Underworld, we defeat the goat, the bat, and the wolf once again, but this time for the last time. I guess killing them down here makes it so that they stay dead. But where is the zesty lightning dude? Ways away, evil Doctor Strange looks like he's edging towards completion. With his ritual, I mean, so we have to hurry. Oh, there he is, and he's got Sonya in a cage, chained and wearing new clothes. Why didn't she listen to Ryu? He told her not to follow him. I don't know. After killing Zarbon for the last time and releasing Sonya from her cage, we tell her, don't move again. Let's see if she listens. Ninja running through the poisoned blood swamp and up to a building where we find Genshin again because in this game everybody has a 3-fight minimum. He's been turned into a fiend, so now he's stronger. After defeating him, he gives us his sword, which we then use to kill Elizebet. Entering a portal, we catch up with evil Doctor Strange, who we beat. But can somebody please tell me why we still let him walk over to the Archfiend to offer his body up to it? Why would Ryu casually let the apocalypse happen? We could have stopped it all here. But sure, let's go ahead and see how this plays out. The Archfiend impales and absorbs evil Doctor Strange, releasing it from its prison, and it begins to climb out of the mountain like a kaiju. But Ryu would battle it by shooting loads of cannonballs at its face. Enough balls to the face kills it, sending it back down the mountain. With the Archfiend seemingly defeated, Sonya calls out to Ryu because, once again, she did not stay put. But somehow, the game tries to sell us a moment between Ryu and Sonya. And honestly, it feels completely out of place. It's out of nowhere. Because they barely interacted outside of Ryu repeatedly saving her or them being in transit together. If there was meaningful connections being formed off screen, we sure as hell did not see it. So as far as we're concerned, this whole forced emotional connection comes out of left field. But just as Ryu and Sonya start heading out, a single drop of Ryu's blood falls from way up near the top of the mountain, somehow making a perfect descent all the way down to the Archfiend's corpse. And I've got questions. 1. Why didn't it just dissolve in mid-air? I feel like one singular drop would have dissolved mid-air. 2. How did it not hit a single rock, ledge, or stray gust of wind along the way? 3. Basic physics. Air friction exists, right? That drop should have changed trajectory at least a little bit, at least once. 4. Ryu and Sonya were literally moving. They were climbing up. That drop should not have fallen in a straight line. But somehow, against all logic, it lands exactly where it needs to, and you already know what this means. We're not done yet. Regardless, the impossible has happened. The drop of blood revives the Archfiend. It bursts through the mountains, taking to the sky, and just like that, turn the music back on, flip the open sign over, we're back in business. Ryu, completely unfazed, just decides that, hey, it's morphin' time, so he jump twirls straight into round 2. After another action-packed battle, we hit the Archfiend so hard, its stomach literally explodes, ending the fight once and for all. With the chaos finally over, Ryu and Sonya stand together, looking out at the first light of a new day. Later, as a final gesture, Ryu plants Genshin's sword in a battleground, paying tribute before walking away. Now, that was a story. But if you want to see a real story in an action RPG, click the video on the screen.